Alright everyone, Lego here is back with a small project to take a break from a bigger project that might come out before or after the summer, who knows. This is a small thing I've been wanting to do for a while now, and it involves Richard Amsel, the illustrator for many of the movie posters that you might associate with the Indiana Jones franchise, as well as a lot of other stuff he did back in the 70s, 80s, maybe 90s as well. And I took his famous little signature here and I hand traced it up real quickly. And I wanted to do a little bit of a handwritten impression here. So I am using some of the same sketch effects that I've used previously in some of the demo projects I've made. And it doesn't take much. It's just a matter of figuring out the right combination of settings to get it right. It depends on the scale of what you're doing. And having made that centerpiece, I now want to turn my focus a little bit to Stopwatch, which I felt was weirdly appropriate for this. And Richard Amsel, his name, spells out into 8 chunks of text in this system. So that worked out really, really well for me. I have now 8 quarters to work with, and I just get right to work. Now, the start marker is the bar at the bottom there, framing the top of his name, and I felt that was pretty fitting, as well as a very stylistic choice of sort of incorporating the start marker into the actual project itself. And the writing is nothing to go into tons of details about. It's been a while since I did some stopwatch, so I had to watch reread the full guide to figure out why I had written certain hints and tips in my quick guide video, but I got it. In the end, the only thing that really tripped me up was the fact that the E comes before the A in the guide, and that is not the typical order of presentation, but I have been informed that the High Council guide does this as well, so I just had to be on my toes for that. Luckily, I caught both of them before I had any trouble, so I managed to fix that and not make any mistakes. So this should be good. And I just finished the circle on the left side there to sort of give the impression that we have a complete circle around the whole thing. The right hand side's arc is necessary for the reading direction, but the left one is just for aesthetics. There you see me catch my E's, adding that extra dot to make it an A, which is what I needed. Now, in terms of the overall project here, there's not too much going on. I had the idea of doing the stopwatch for his name there, and then his signature in the middle, and I wanted it to be in that vague 1980s Indiana Jones style that he was so very famous for doing. At least in my mind, some of the most famous work he did was those posters. So at some point, I am going to want to do something to splice that text up a little bit, because I think it was always my intention to see if I could do a bit of handwritten-esque stuff with that text as well. So I'm not completely done yet, but I also felt like I had to do something more. So having naturally arrived at this sort of layout, it gave me a very tempting space in the left and right side. And after a little bit of deliberating and thinking about it, I decided to actually add the tagline for one of his memoriam pieces, which was Illustrator of the Lost Art, or Illustrator of the Lost Arts. I've also sometimes seen it. So I decided to write that out around the edges as a sort of extra little tribute to why Richard Amsel was so amazing. And I had a bit of a debate with myself about what system I would want to do that in. And keeping in mind the fact that I had the intention of doing some some sketch effects on this. I know the round shapes are not the best to work with. They're not the easiest ones to work with. They can work, of course, but it wasn't. I wasn't doing myself any favors if I were to use more rounded shapes, especially for the smaller pieces. So I ended up doing Rook, as you can see here, and in this case, because of the direction of the arc and the way I'm expressing my text, I'm not going to run into the same hard issues with the directionality and the difficulties of cutting this up the same way I had with the previous big Rook project, which was the Through the Valley project. So in this case, I'm having an easier time cutting it up. This is also a much simpler project, of course. Used the start marker up on the top left and then just went through it piece by piece, adding the necessary stuff that I need to and trying to figure out where I want the various line modifiers and stuff to not really get in the way of the centerpiece or the other stopwatch text. So I'm trying to keep things a little bit separate here, not intruding too much into the center space. Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to talk about, like in terms of text. This is pretty much it. Like I have these 5 words here, and only thing I'll really remark upon is the stacking that I managed to work out here. Is probably some of the best accidentally genius stacking I've ever done. You can stack all sorts of stuff in all sorts of ways in Rook as a means of making the text more compact because it's optimized for handwriting the way it is. And in this case, I happen to be able to take advantage of that in a way that really, really stands out compared to what you would do in Sherman's. The open floating modifiers and the open divots just disconnected from the rest of it is very unique, and I think only really seen in Clockwork Gallifreyan, as well as some versions of Diflux. So that really helped it gain a little bit of its own identity as well, apart from, of course, the the appearance of the vowels, if that didn't give it away, as well as the start here marker, which is fairly unique as well. Now, having done the text, I am now doing a bit of a cheap thing. In order to mass effect this entire writing piece, I group them together, which limits my options quite a bit in other respects, but it enables me to make the color and the path effects in one go without messing anything up. And there's only a few things here you can tell I needed to modify a bit. But otherwise, I got the effect I wanted pretty much in one go. At the cost of, this is now a group and there's a lot of things I can't do with a group, like gradients and stuff. So I am now locked into this way of doing it. At this point in time, I am now doing a bit more on the actual color palette, and it was also at this stage that I got pretty distracted with some other stuff because I was live streaming this on Discord as well. So I was, half my mind was on chatting with people and half my mind was trying to do this, and it actually resulted in a few small mistakes that I hope I caught later on regarding the way I did the background, the way I did the masks, and actually some of the recording itself at some point. We'll get back to that. Right now, I'm just trying to roughen up the background a little tiny bit so it doesn't look so flat. Give it more of a pencil-like appearance. Like maybe this was sketched out and you had a rough hatch in some regards in the background. I think that really gave it a bit more personality in a way. So I ended up doing a bunch of iterations of this. This is one of the first color versions you see, but I'm also intending to do a stone version, because at this point I thought, how would this look if I did a stone carving? And I really wanted to see that, so we'll come back to that. But now the idea of a stone version was implanted in my mind. Yeah, and to get around the rough effects of the grouped objects, I had to take a copy, as you see there, and then color those in separately. So I ended up getting two different effects on this by literally just stacking it on top of each other, because I can't work with them the same way once that effect is applied, the way I applied it. Otherwise, I would have to do the whole thing as a single object, and that would be a nightmare, I think, to get working. Although, possibly, if I unified the whole thing and maybe split up the shorter pieces, that could work. I might have to try that one day just to see if that's an easier way to do it. But for now, I decided to stack it to get around that problem. And that gives me the opportunity to do some color work, as you see here. Now, I wasn't too keen or too sure about what exactly I wanted to do with this, but I ended up trying to do a sort of two-tone edge thingy to contrast the whole thing a bit and give it a bit more almost cartoonish design, where it doesn't look as lifelike anymore. It looks a little bit more like a drawing or a cartoon, and I felt that was fitting, actually, as long as I kept within the color palette and the overall style. I felt this actually did something to elevate that a little bit more, make it stand out, and still adding this just that little bit of color to it. And some minor adjustments, and this is another version pretty much done. Now at this stage I wanted to see if I could roughen the whole thing just to get a bit more texture. Down there broke my computer for some reason, because this apparently somehow was an overly complicated task for it to do. I don't think there was that many notes, but suddenly it struggled a lot. And it took a while for me to get through that. I've edited a bit here, but in the end it worked out. Now I tried to do a little bit with the background, the boundary ring as well. I don't really think I liked the end result very much, but I kept one version of it with just a little bit of roughness around the edges, just a teeny bit, to, I guess, blend in a little bit with the rest. Had a totally clean edge and then all the hand-drawn stuff in the middle. But I digress. We are now simplifying this whole image a bit to get it ready for the stonework. Now, every time I do carvings, either in stone or wood or whatever, I pretty much always forget the workflow. So what I should have done is I should have stopped the video, go watch some of my own older YouTube videos and see how I did it, how I got it to work, and then just replicate that. I didn't. So I went by feel here, and I must say, as well as being distracted by the live chat, this also perhaps didn't result in the most amazing workflow ever. So I confess this is probably not the best I could do, but it got the job done, and in the end I fiddled around with it enough to get a sort of setting, a bunch of settings that I could live with. So I knew from memory that it involved multiple versions of the same background piece in different hues to get that offset of the color, the depth, and I knew it usually involved shadow work. What I didn't do this time around was do that shadow work on the inside of the carvings. This time I did them on the outside to raise the effect instead of lowering it. And that's the part that could have been done better, because I just did the blur effects to get that shadow, where I could have should have used an actual carved piece of the offset of the text itself in both directions. But so this is a sort of cheaper version of that, but it is also faster, and there's less fiddling with the details of how it actually looks in perspective. So that is my only excuse for that. Having made the background and having now tried to elevate the outer text, I am now doing the same thing for the center text, trying to make that symbol appear a little bit off the surface, like it's raised in a little bit. And that was really hard to get right. And at some point in the next few seconds, I stopped recording accidentally. So you'll see a sharp shift from one design, and then in a few moments, it'll be a lot darker. There we go. And I couldn't really settle on one of them before I did both. So I ended up doing both. And that is the final iteration of the thing. And I am really happy with it. I like the simplicity of it, and I like the fact that I got to play in a few variety of different styles while still keeping the core the same. I also like that I got to work a little bit with stopwatch again. It feels like an appropriate amount of stopwatch for pieces like this. The last time I did stopwatch, I did a lot, and that can work, but it's not really geared to that. It's more geared towards simpler, more intimate pieces like this, and I really like how the Rook fill out that last remaining space around there to really round the whole thing off and make it less empty. So I'm really pleased with this, and I'm really pleased with the project as a whole. And I think I'll say no more. Have a good day, and I might see you another time. Bye.